Before we get into today's podcast, I just wanted to take care of a couple housekeeping items. First of all, I've never asked this before, but if you're enjoying the podcast and you've gotten some value out of it, please leave us a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. That could be Apple, Spotify, or whatever else is out there. That helps us spread the word and grow the podcast. And as of now, it is the longest actively running moving industry podcast. And I think it also has the most episodes out of any moving industry podcast. So I'm very grateful for all of the loyal listeners to it and help spread the word there. And I also wanted to announce the dates for our upcoming Moving Titan retreat. It's going to be in Tampa, Florida on October 3rd and 4th, right after moving season this year. And we've got an amazing lineup of speakers. We may even have some surprise appearances by some people you might know, but we know for sure Tommy Mello is coming back for 2 days, and we've got some huge industry titans coming to speak, including Brian Slater, Stephen Reed, JC Caldwell with Black Tie Moving, Steve Kuhn, who helped get JK to be one of the largest independent moving companies in the country, as well as Larry O'Toole. He will be back. And then Sean Crane is going to be coming back by popular demand as well. And somebody that I'm really excited about is Lenny Gray, who we recently did a podcast with on door knocking for the moving industry, among many others. And again, we are still lining up guests, and there will be likely some surprises. So don't miss the next Moving Titan retreat. We have early bird pricing in effect, and prices go up every month leading up to the retreat. So it's going to be $19.97 if you wait. But right now you can get it for at least 50% off. So that's through May. Now after May, it's going to go up again. And then eventually it'll get to that $19.97. So lock in your tickets now so we can get a head count. And the more people that sign up with the early bird specials, the more really cool guests and exciting things we can do like has never been done in the moving industry. And then finally, go check out Tighten Up Training. We're heading into summertime, and movers are going to be getting hired across the entire industry. As we all know, those are high turnover rates. You get busy as the owner or as a manager in your moving company, and Tighten Up Training is the solution to streamlining the onboarding. We've got over 200 videos in there shot with Netflix grade quality, and there's quizzes you can assign and track, and it's even gamified to where people earn points for watching videos over and over again, where they can earn badges, have contests with your team. There's also all the Andy Elliott sales training videos in there, as well as a bunch of marketing and leadership videos that we created. And we're going to continue to add content. It is the #1 online training program for the moving industry. So don't get behind your competition, because if you don't buy it, competition will. It's going to make your moving season much, much easier with a finally reliable, high production value online moving training course. So check out tightenuptraining.com today. Now let's get into the episode. At Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising, we are Team Smart Moving. This has been the CRM that we have used for the last 4 years, and it has grown right alongside with us. I love all the features, all the reporting tools, how easy it makes to schedule, book, sell, dispatch crews. It really is an intuitive software. It's really dialed in without the bugs and the glitches that we've experienced with other softwares in the past. So it still amazes me if a company is not using a CRM. I still find companies that are doing it the old-fashioned way with spreadsheets and calendars and notes and handwriting job orders, and you don't have to do that with Smart Moving. That's a bottleneck that's holding you back if that's you. So make the switch to Smart Moving, whether you're using a CRM or not. It truly is the smartest move you'll ever make, just like we tell our clients that we're the smartest move you'll ever make. So check out Smart Moving today and schedule your free demo. All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Sweikel, owner of Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising, as well as the co-founder of Moving Titan Retreats and Tighten Up Training. Today's guest is somebody that we've been working with now since 2023, towards the end of 2023. He actually found me through this podcast and reached out about a really exciting startup that he was a co-founder, is a co-founder of. I got Riley Johnson on the podcast today. He is the co-founder and CEO of ComeHome AI. It's a really innovative new feature that we have been beta testing now for several months, and he's got the product now officially launched and open available to the public. But essentially, what Come Home AI is an AI feature on our website that clients and customers can use to take pictures of their inventories, and it uses AI to inventory those pictures, saving time and hassle for moving consultants while also working to increase our conversions for web quote forms. And I've been extremely impressed with the team over at Come Home AI so far. They have built out some really cool technology, and we're seeing really promising results from the data and the conversion rates from our customers. And it's just a really cool feature, and everything they're doing is really state of the art stuff. And they're making it at a price point that's affordable to movers, unlike some other AI inventory systems that we've heard feedback from. Riley, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Welcome. Tell me a little bit about your backstory. How did you get into the moving and storage space, and what ultimately led you to developing ComeHome.ai?
Yeah, sure. So, kind of going way back. So my background was in computer engineering, and there was a friend of mine in college who he actually got two engineering majors at the same time. And when I met this guy and realized he was doing that, I was like, "What, are you nuts?" But he did it. He's actually the only person in our college's history that did it. So he's a really, really smart guy. We've stayed friends over the past, almost 20 years. So we've kind of kicked around ideas over time. And actually, like, I had a bad experience with a mover. They gave me a lowball quote, they ripped me off, and I kind of came away thinking, gosh, there's got to be a better way, right? And so I reached out to several moving company owners, had a lot of conversations, and just I developed an empathy, because what a lot of them would say is like, listen, we don't like these lowball movers either, right? They're kind of like putting a bad name on the industry, but we have to compete against them, so we're kind of in a tight spot. So yeah, we really started digging into how do we give the good movers a leg up against the competition, so that we can make sure that everybody has just a more trustworthy experience.
I love it, and I guess I gave a little bit of a description of Come Home AI, but can you tell us exactly like what does Come Home AI do? Like, what is the overall mission of your company, and how it relates to helping movers grow their companies?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's trust, right? We're using technology to build trust, and ultimately what it's about is we're really focusing on family-owned type movers, right? The backbone of America, right? These are America's small business owners. And we're trying to bring a lot of our tech background, a lot of things that are pretty normal and commonplace in the high tech space. So if you go look at like how Microsoft handles leads, you go look at how Oracle or someone like OpenAI handles leads, there's some practices there that we're able to bring down to folks that are like a more like reachable level price wise. So that's what we've been working on for the past like 9 or 10 months. And I think a lot of it is, right, if you got somebody on your website, how do you build trust? Right? Because what most people do is they Google best mover in Omaha, right? And they kind of maybe open 3 tabs of the top 3 results, which is why everybody works so hard on SEO. And I think everyone's always thinking, how do we differentiate? We know that they're looking at multiple tabs. How do we make sure they give us their contact information and then ultimately with us, and not the other 3 tabs they have?
And how does Come Home AI help with that?
Yeah. So, right now, the most movers are using kind of the same lead form that we've had since the 90s, right? So just give me your address, give me your name, give me your phone number, and then I'll robocall you for days. And as somebody on the other side of those robocalls, it's not the best experience. So there's a question around, a lot of people are investing a lot of time and money into their website, and there's a lot of great CRMs in out there, but what's in between, right? And how can we improve that is really the space that we put a lot of thought into. So by giving these residents the option to take pictures of their stuff immediately, just walk through their house, takes them 1 minute, take photos of all their stuff. We build out the survey, and then we email that both to the movers and to the resident with it estimates the weight, estimates the number of items, tells you how many tables, chairs, etc. And that gives the mover the opportunity to start at the 50-yard line, right? Because when you call them up, you already have a lot of information about these people versus if it's just a lead coming to a lead form, they've probably filled out 5, 6 other movers' lead forms, right? And they're starting from the 10-yard line. So in recent months, what we've seen is that you've got over 98% of the time that someone actually completes the photos, they pick up your call. Right? You're actually able to get in touch.
Yeah, and one thing I love about what you guys have done, I mean, it's not even just the photo AI feature, but you're reimagining the quote form on a website to capture more leads. You basically, when somebody starts filling out a lead form, when they use yours, it captures the keystrokes. And if they abandon that form or don't click submit, one of the things that drives me crazy when I fill out, online forms, if I don't format a phone number correctly or complete, the email
Yeah.
address or whatever, like sometimes it won't let me submit the form at all. Whereas your software is able to actually capture whatever information they put in. And if they get distracted, their phone rings, their dog's barking, they get pulled away from their computer after a few seconds, it automatically will submit and go into your CRM. And I think that in and of itself is a really valuable feature because it captures the person that initially had the intent. And if they get distracted and they don't finish completing the form or they don't format it perfectly to how the form needs you to format it, it'll still drop into our smart moving software. So I think that's really cool. AI is a really big buzzword right now, right? Like you had ChatGPT roll out almost 2 years ago now, and it really is kind of taking things by storm. It's rapidly evolving. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that people are doing now with photos and videos and voices even, and it's helping a lot of businesses dial in sales processes in a lot of different ways. But I guess, what is AI? Like, what is this buzzword that is AI that now is becoming the center of the internet?
Yeah. So I actually did graduate work in data science. And I've been working at companies that are really deep into the AI space and providing the AI infrastructure that runs things like ChatGPT. So I've got a pretty decent background here, although I'm not going to claim to be an actual data scientist or actual machine learning engineer. Like those folks are fantastic. But ultimately, where we're at right now is, if you're familiar with if you take a full file and you just zip the file and it gets a lot smaller. That's in very rough terms where we're at as a state of the art. So essentially, what's going on is you want to tell the difference between a cat and a dog. You take a model and you just keep feeding an image and say, hey, is this a cat or a dog? And it guesses. And you say, no, that's wrong, or yes, that's right. And if you just keep doing that over time, it'll learn. Right. So OpenAI has done is they literally scrape the entire internet, which is why the New York Times is suing them, right? Because it's copyrighted material and there's a whole legal debate that I'm not a lawyer. And then they ran that entire body of data through these models. So inside the models, you have a representation of that data. It's not a perfect copy of that data. Usually you can't get an entire article back of the New York Times when you put in a prompt. Although sometimes if you really work hard at it, you can. But ultimately, it's a compressed version of all of that, right? So the state of the art right now is basically it's predicting the next word, and is really good at saying, if you say see dog blank, it's really good at saying run and not car, right? So it's really good at knowing which words usually come after the next one, and that looks like true intelligence to us, but it's not there yet. And there's some really fun experiments you can do where ChatGPT will completely break down for you, mostly around planning and reasoning. It's not able to do algebra very well, right? If you give it an algebra equation, a lot of times it goes, I don't know, and it just makes something up.
Huh. So, I've said it for a long time that the moving industry is just really behind on the times. It's really antiquated. You've got these 100-year-old van lines that are doing business the same way now as they were 40 years ago. And we're starting to see this revolution. And that's something that we really bring to the surface with our moving Titan retreats and our Titan Up training is trying to create this modern day community for movers that isn't this crusty, dusty old like methodology that, this stigma that movers have, where they're just really not up to speed like a lot of other industries are, that there's just not a lot of resources available. I mean, we just started getting like legitimate CRMs a few years ago, and we use Smart Moving, and in my opinion, it's the best one out there currently. There's some other good ones that I've heard a lot of really good things about as well. And that's been a huge step up and given movers a big advantage from the old paper bill of lading days where, you didn't even have to use computers. You kept things in file cabinets,
Mm.
and allows you to track follow-ups and things like that a lot better. But you come from a tech background. You have, ties with like the Silicon Valley crowd. What are some of the areas, just from an outsider's perspective, that you see people pushing the state of the art with technology in different industries that you think could be translated over to the moving and storage space?
Yeah, I mean, one big one is like, so if you put in, you call for an Uber or you call for a DoorDash, like you expect that to happen, right? You don't want that to get lost in translation, right? And one of the things that they do from a software level is they're monitoring all of that, right? So everything that the customer does, they're monitoring it, and also when it gets punched, the submit button gets punched, they make sure that that happens, and everything has a failure rate, right? So even like at DoorDash, a lot of those don't go through. I mean, the Wi-Fi goes out, their server goes down, there's a bug in the code, like stuff happens. So, one of the things that we've done in providing this new lead form that actually just goes onto the mover's website is, yes, like you mentioned, we're kind of watching what they're doing in real time, and so that we can capture that lead, even if they click out of the tab, so you can still call them and say, hey, we didn't want to leave you hanging. We got like a partial contact information from you. Not sure if our website glitched out or what. We want to make sure you're taken care of. But also, not all of your leads make it into your CRM, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. There could be an invalid character. It could be, some sort of software bug. It could be your CRM's like website goes down, an API goes down. So we actually monitor that as well, right? So we make sure that that lead guaranteed delivery actually gets into the CRM. And if CRM's just down, we'll send it via email to make sure it gets to you one way or another. And that's surprisingly uncommon. And I think it's really just, we talk about people who are small business owners. There's so much on your plate. There's just so many things that you're supposed to take care of. Angry customers, all the recruiting challenges. And that type of thing hasn't become commonplace, right? So there's these types of things that I think are pretty normal in the high tech space that will probably become very normal for the moving industry within the next 2 or 3 years. But another big one is ultimately like paying attention to the right leads. And right now, everybody treats every lead the same, which, if everything's a priority, nothing is, right? So you'll have, the same amount of effort going into calling someone who's $500 as $5,000, right? And one of the things that we're doing is really trying to provide more information, right? From the get-go, who is this person? What's their house worth? How big is the house? Like, do we have a destination address? Is it a big distance? Are they even within your like operating, circumference, right? All of this kind of information. And also like, what did the user do? Did they take photos? Did we verify their phone number? Like, the more we can learn about this person from the get-go, the better off you're going to be. So by the time you're calling them on the phone, you can say, oh, hey, thanks for putting in the addresses. Are you guys downsizing? Right? You can get all this type of information, and there's going to be, even more as we go, because the data sets are becoming more and more available, so that you're really giving your salesperson from the get-go the information they need to be successful and beat quota.
Yeah, I think qualifying leads is important, and it also helps you know how to approach that lead. I don't think we want to like just not take a lead because it may be coming from a source that may not be a great source, because you never really know until you get the customer on the phone. And I think it's important to treat every lead like gold, even if at first it doesn't seem like it's going to be a very viable job or a super profitable job. But sometimes you're surprised. I mean, if you do a 1 or 2 bedroom move in a high rise apartment complex to another high rise apartment complex, it might seem like a smaller move coming in, but that could be a full day worth of work when you navigate the long carries and the elevators and the parking situation and everything else. And they can actually be very profitable jobs. Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part, this resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email.
One of the worst parts about owning a moving company has to be finding quality movers and drivers. Trying to run all the job ads takes up time, and then you schedule guys to come in for interviews and they never show up. It's a massive headache. Well, let me tell you about a good friend of mine named Winston who runs a company called Move Up Consulting. Move Up specializes in hiring and recruiting for the moving and storage industry, and they do all the lead generation for mover and driver candidates. They have a fully built hiring CRM, plus you get a dedicated account manager who phone interviews and screens all of your candidates. Once they find qualified candidates, they schedule in-person interviews for you and your management team so you can make great hires. They even handle all the appointment confirmations. It's that simple. To start building a better moving team today, visit moveupconsulting.com and tell them Wade sent you.
Want to know what the silver bullet for growing your business is? USA Home Listings. USA Home Listings has a myriad of marketing services that are essential to every single moving company. It blows my mind when I have conversations with people who reach out looking for help, trying to get leads, trying to get the phone to ring, that aren't doing mailers and aren't subscribed to USA Home Listings. The data there is so invaluable, and it's not just home listing data, even though that's an awesome, super easy, super intuitive feature that they provide where you can filter out all of the homes that recently went under contract or got listed in your neighborhood, and a new coming soon feature before it even hits the MLS that you can filter out through zip codes, towns, cities, counties, prices. But that's just one small feature that they do. They also have turnkey mailing services. They'll help you design your postcard, a postcard that actually gets results. If you've tried mailers in the past and it didn't work, it's probably because you didn't have the right elements on your postcard. And they also have a social media division. So check out usahomelistings.com. It's an essential addition to all of your marketing needs. Before you do any other marketing, check out usahomelistings.com. And, you brought up a term recently in our interactions back and forth about lead scoring. Can you kind of talk about what is lead scoring and how can movers utilize lead scoring and how do you help them with that?
Sure. And this really comes down to the more you know about your customer, the better relationship you're going to have with them, the more trust you're going to build, right? For me, it all goes back to trust. And I come from a world where we're maybe a CIO fills out a form. I need to make sure I get a hold of that person as soon as possible. This is a decision maker, right? This is somebody you want to invest a lot of time in versus somebody who's, if, for example, a janitor, reaches out to a tech firm, that person probably doesn't have decision-making power on, a multi-million-dollar deal. So one of the things that I really think about is okay, so if you know that this is a $10,000 lead, are you going to treat it differently? And the answer is yes, right? You're going to try to call them at lunch. You're going to try to text them, at 8:45 in the morning, right? Maybe they're on their commute. You're going to try to catch them at all these different times and think about it a little bit more, because ultimately, you can only stack $500 jobs so high as a salesperson versus that $5,000 job, that $10,000 job is going to get you a lot further just from the get-go. So really, lead scoring, the thought behind that is, how do we help boil down for a sales rep, hey, here are the criteria that we think they're likely to book, and we think they're going to be worth a lot of money. And this also plays into capacity, right? For most of the kind of backbone of America's small business owners, they only have so many hands, they only have so many trucks, right? So on a really busy Saturday in the summer, do you want to book this move or do you want to book that, right? And it can make a pretty big difference at the end of the day if you choose to book all of the high profit moves and your competitors take all the low profit moves. Right, that becomes a virtuous cycle for you and a very bad cycle for your competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were just looking at our schedule for this month, and we've got a lot of out-of-state jobs happening this month that are tying up trucks for multiple days at a time. And we had a conversation in our recent operations meeting about, okay, what's our true profitability on these when you factor in the opportunity cost of not
Yep.
being able to service local moves. Because if a truck goes across the country and it's gone for 5 days, that's a truck in the fleet that's down for 5 days. And, maybe it's a $10,000 move, but is five other $2,500 moves worth one
Right.
$10,000 move? So how can we maximize the profitability on those longer distance jobs? And, there's a million answers to that question. I don't expect you to answer it, but it's being able to pick out, when should we turn away business because ultimately it isn't the most profitable when you factor in that opportunity cost. And we saw some days where we had to have a conversation with our sales team about, don't schedule 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom apartments for 8 a.m. Schedule
Mm,
those as like a first available job because, we don't know what other opportunities we're going to get those days. And it might be
right.
something we want to do later on in the day if we have something else that's more profitable or more pressing to do in the morning. Because if you schedule a 1 bedroom move in the morning, you might be done by noon. And now you can't get the, 4 bedroom move that's going to take 8 hours that would otherwise tie up that truck for the full day. So like, what can we do to optimize each truck so that, we're stacking up those jobs by making them first available rather than have three small jobs that take up, that basically tie up the whole day and take you away from a big job that you could put on, for the full day and then stack up those little ones. So, I mean, that's super important. And that's something in the summertime and at the end of the month, most months that movers need to be very conscious of, and then setting your pricing accordingly based off of that truck availability. I mean, you might
Yep.
have a day with only 4 jobs, but that may tie up your whole fleet or your whole crew if they're bigger jobs or they're out of state jobs or whatever. And so maybe you have 1 or 2 slots left on a day. You need to charge premium rates because you may have to go rent a truck because your truck's tied up. And then if you're charging lower rates and now you have extra expenses like overtime or truck rentals, it can definitely factor in your profitability. And at the end of the day, I'm guilty of this many summers where it feels like we're working so hard, we're booked
Mm,
every day, but we're ultimately just spinning our wheels because we're not
right.
optimizing the schedule. And I think there's a huge place with AI to help movers optimize their schedules and to optimize their pricing algorithms and pricing models, just like airlines and hotels do. You book depending on the day of the week you book and how busy they are, their prices are going to reflect that to
Yep.
optimize the overall profitability. And I know that's not exactly what ComeHome AI does, but it's on the right track of utilizing that AI to make sure that, those are running as efficiently as possible and you're able to truly maximize your schedule. I think I did the math the other day, and if every single truck we have is bringing in our average job size move every single day of the month, we should be closing out well over $600,000 a month. And there's definitely months where we don't come close to $600,000, but it feels like we're booked up every single day because we hadn't
Right.
optimized that schedule. So the theoretical maximal revenue that you can get with a certain size fleet or a certain size crew a lot of times varies because of those inefficiencies. And I think that's a huge area for AI to come in and
Yeah.
to help out a lot with
Yeah.
things.
There's a whole discipline called data engineering, right? Where you are gathering data from a lot of different resources, a lot of different sources. You're making it make sense, and then you're presenting in a way that is really, really useful quickly. And like exactly what you were talking about, like you can imagine, like would you call people and book differently if you knew their title, right? You knew their household income, right? Would you book differently if you knew the average like number of stars they gave on Google and Yelp, right? All of this information is out there, and like right now, it's not really being used by movers today. So, to the extent that we can bring all this information so that you can do the Tetrising, you can see that bringing all that information to bear is the first step in the Tetrising of the jobs and the resource allocation. And the folks who do smart resource allocation are just going to run so much faster than folks that don't, right? And that's the airlines showed that pretty quickly, and that was back in the 80s. So, the tech exists. It needs to be brought and really customized at a price point that's actually adoptable for small business owners rather than just like adoptable for, a really large van line, for example. And like one of the things you were kind of bringing up there is like matching the right person to the right job, either in terms of like the salesperson who's calling this resident or the crew that's going out to the job. More information, things like photos. One customer of ours said, geez, I send folks to a house that seems like it's, a regular old house. They get inside, it's been completely remodeled, right? It's china, it's crystal, it's, And if I send the wrong people to that job, we're getting a bad review, period. Right. There's more careful folks. There's more like, clean cut folks. Right. So like cleaning that up and really that just being smart about that requires having the information first. And I think this is where like there's this gap between the website and the CRM. And I think that, as CRMs start to really open up their APIs, we'll be able to provide more and more and more of this information so that the CRM can do a lot more of the kind of scheduling, right? And we can provide the information that's usable for that.
Yeah, totally. I think part of what is so cool about what you're doing is like you're getting the pictures of what's in the home and you can aggregate that information to potentially offer additional services because you can only get so much information over a phone. You can send out a salesperson to get eyes on a job, or you can do a virtual survey with them, but you're still not taking full advantage of all that information. I think in our early conversations, you discussed, if like you said, if they've got some kind of china in the home, the person might just say, yeah, I have a china cabinet, there's some dishes in there. But then you realize it needs full crating services. They've got a chandelier right next to the china cabinet that they forgot to mention on the walkthrough or the over the phone quote, that now you can offer services like, hey, did you want to take that chandelier with you on your move? Oh, I didn't know we could do that. Yeah, actually we do crating services, and it's this much extra, and there's an upsell opportunity there. I think there's a lot of things that we could do, and the AI can point those things out to you that a salesperson might miss or a customer might not even think of, about additional services that you're able to offer to somebody. Because people that are moving, there's a lot of home services that rely on people that are moving, whether it's before they move, getting ready to move, like a painter. You could theoretically use data to sell, an affiliate program with a local painting service if you realize that their walls need to be painted to list their house. Or after
Right.
the fact, if they move from an apartment to a house with a yard, they're probably going to need a lawnmower. You could, team up with a local hardware store to help, you know, try to send them a lead to somebody who's going to be needing a lawnmower. And that's a lot of times overlooked by just your run of the mill salesperson doing old practices and being able to look for those additional upsell opportunities. And I think that there is a lot of hope for that in the future. How do you help to keep the Come Home AI program more cost effective for your everyday small business moving company owner? Because there are a lot of, well, not a lot, there's one competitor, sort of, I guess, competitor in mind that I'm thinking of that has been doing that photo or video aggregation to tally up inventories for a while, but it's always been very expensive. It could be a couple $1,000s a month plus a cost per survey. And for most small business owners, most local independent moving company owners, that's just not feasible. Like, it doesn't make sense to spend that much money on that technology to, there's just not enough of an ROI on it versus just doing it the old fashioned way. What I love about Come Home AI is it makes it affordable to the small independent moving company owner, even the larger ones, to save on margins by offering a lot of the same technologies. But what are you doing to get those costs down and to be more reachable for a wider audience and wider customer base of movers?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I just have to give my co-founder credit for that because he builds things from a technology standpoint in such a way that it's way lower price cost to us than I ever imagined was possible when we got started here. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that you taught me was that even $10 can make the difference between whether a lead is worth booking or not, right? Even $10 can make, and you think about the truck, and maybe you can go into this a little bit more detail. But when you think about the truck and the crew and all of the admin and everything else, another $10 and you could actually lose money on that, right? And so in our conversations with the movers, and really our goal is how do we help increase the trust and book more business, right? And yeah, there's companies that do virtual surveys, and they do that extremely well. And we just looked at that and said we think that is kind of an efficiency thing, right? It definitely helps with getting things done remotely during COVID and stuff like that. And we're really focused on you've got someone on your website that you don't know, right? And they're thinking about you and they're thinking about your competitors. How do you bring them further down the process with you, right? How do you get them to invest in your process? How do you show them a differentiated experience that builds that trust and builds that relationship so they do pick up your call? And when they pick up your call, you already have this knowledge of what their life situation is that you can be empathetic for. That for us is what we're trying to do. We'll leave the kind of holistic virtual survey business to the folks who specialize at that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, from the data that we've gotten so far, people that fill out they go through the whole ComeHome AI process and they take the pictures, not only fill out the quote form, but then proceed to take those pictures of their entire inventory, seem to be booking at almost twice the rate of somebody who just fills out a random quote form. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, and there's statistical methods to kind of tease out whether something's probably causal or not, meaning are they booking at a higher rate because of the tool and the process and the experience, or are these folks who would have booked with you anyways and they just preferred this experience and said, "Oh, this is actually really nice." We need more data to be able to be 100% confident on the causal side and say, "Yeah, these people are actually booking at a higher rate because they've taken the photos, the other guy, they pick up the phone and now they got to go through the whole survey with them versus with you, you've already shown that you want to give them a fair quote because it's based on photos and everyone at the end of the day can say, yeah, that was in the photos. You said it was going to move. That's built into the price, right? Everybody has a sense of trust when it's documented. So like whether it's because the people who book with you much prefer this technology or whether it's because it actually influences them to book, that's kind of the thing that we're collecting data to try to ascertain. But right now it seems pretty obvious that they book at a higher rate.
Yeah, I agree, and you're right. Like we're still kind of in that data gathering phase. Are they more engaged, so they're more likely to book with you since they've spent more time and less likely to go get other quotes, or are they just like, wow, this company is like really technologically advanced? How you do anything is how you do everything, so they must be technologically advanced and handling our stuff better. With your clients, have you seen like the quality of service improve by gathering accurate inventories and photos through your software?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've gone back and we've reached out to folks who booked with a mover and asked them like, hey, did this experience positively influence your decision to book with this mover? And 2/3 of those said yes, right? So that was a good positive sign. In terms of the efficiency gains, in terms of like not having to go out to the house or not have to like walk through everything from scratch on the phone, or making sure there's actually the right number of people sent to a job or the right kind of people sent to a job and the right amount of packing materials. There's all of that efficiency gain that I'm actually we're still working on how to quantify that. I mean, I would ask you in terms of the folks who go through and take all the photos, do you feel like it's a smoother experience for the customer? Do you feel like your people are spending less time kind of doing all the admin work to get ready for it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few sides to that. I think that, some customers are still unfamiliar with the technology, and I fear that it would pose a risk of confusing them, and a confused customer doesn't buy if they're not, totally clear on exactly how this technology works. Like
Sure.
how do I just get a quote? Like maybe they're just not used to it. I mean, how are you training the consumer base to adopt this new thing? Because when the internet first came up, your traditional customer would still go to the yellow pages. They wouldn't think to go online and look for a moving company. But now that's probably the first place they go, and the yellow pages are virtually dead. And even the older crowd they're on Facebook. Your baby boomers are on
Yeah.
Facebook. They're searching Google. They're reading the reviews. Like they've been just kind of like trained to use this newfangled interwebs technology over the last 20 or 30 years. And, I'm curious to hear your take on like, how do we educate our consumer base
Mhm.
to recognize this technology, recognize the companies that are on the up and up that are using it, so that it's not counterintuitive and so that it
Sure.
becomes a selling point versus a confusing point for them. What's it going to take to get mass adoption?
Yeah, and I think of it in terms of like ultimately customers they have preferences for a reason, and it's going to take time for some of those preferences to change. But like I remember the first time someone told me about Airbnb, right? And I remember the first time someone told me about Uber, right? And it was like a foreign concept to me. And it took me like 2 or 3 years to adopt that. So I don't think that this is going to be an overnight thing, but I mean, on one side, movers spend something like 18 million hours a year counting furniture and writing it down, which is like, a $500 million. And, there's a human error rate involved in that. On the other side of this, like, yes, some people are going to look at this new thing and go, I'm just going to fill out the lead form, call me, right? And totally fair, right? We want to meet the customers where they're at. We want to capture every lead, right? And we want to be able to give them a great experience. So we do that with our lead form, and we make the photos optional, right? So we don't push them too hard on that. We found, like, one of the things you did is like kind of the $25 off or incentive for the residents who take the photos. We have found that does probably influence some behavior, so that's been positive. Some of our movers are talking about doing like if you complete this lead for the photos, then we're able to give you a flat guaranteed quote for the things that are in the photos, right? Because it eliminates some of the he said, she said. Well, we told you about that couch. Well, no, the couch wasn't on the inventory. It kind of eliminates a lot of that stuff. But I just think it's going to be time for a large part. But in the work that we did, doing a ton of user testing before we released this, we found that even if you're 70, 75-year-old grandma, they all know how to take photos, right? So if you kind of go through the way we've designed this, it's just like taking photos, and that's it. Right? There's some instructions, but nobody reads them. I don't think that'll surprise anybody. Like, customers don't necessarily take time to read stuff. So we found that we couldn't have the experience require any specialized training. It has to be just so intuitive that it works, period.
Makes total sense. Have you found any data yet, or maybe you're still collecting it, but do you have any data on like what demographics are more prone to embrace and use the technology, the ComeHome AI technology, to do the photos and to go through that process?
Don't have a good demographic breakout yet. We have found that they're like slightly, not by much, but slightly higher than the average move in terms of weight. But that's all the information we have right now.
Gotcha. And can you walk me through, for the listeners, maybe less feasible than just going online and going to twocollegebrothers.com and seeing for yourself, but I encourage everybody to do that. But can you walk me through how, the customer experience is from the time they get to the website to the time they complete the form?
Yeah, really good question. So on your website, the existing lead form you have, we replace that with ours, and it adopts, it does the Google Tag Manager, it emits all those kind of like marketing tracing events and stuff like that. It adopts the colors and scheme of your website automatically. So they fill that out. And in the background, like I said, as they're kind of typing stuff out, we actually are able to capture every keystroke, so that if they do close out, or if they accidentally refresh it, or if they mean to come back for it later, we're able to continue that experience, have you guys still be able to reach out to them. So when they fill that out and press go, at the bottom it says, all right, step 1, fill out the form. Step 2, optional, take the photos. Step 3, book your move, right? And basically once they submit that submit button, click the submit button after they've filled out name, email, etc. We take them to a more full lead form that also has things like to address and things like that. So there's 6 forms. It brings over everything they've already typed, right? They use Google autocomplete. So as soon as they start typing in the address, it's done, and you guys know it's accurate. And then it presents them, whatever offer a mover wants to say, guaranteed quote, $50 off, that type of thing. And lets them, click continue, and then it immediately takes them into this experience that lets them take the photos, right? So lets them take the photos. As soon as they click done on the photos, it puts down your phone number right in front of them. It says you can call them now, or we'll be in touch as soon as ASAP. If at any point they abandon the experience, we still capture that lead. We still put it in your CRM. So we still do the lead scoring and everything, right? And then the user, the resident, is then able to, they get in their inbox and their email the link to all their photos, right? And all that information. Ultimately, like, this is again about trust. So they have the right to go in that link and delete those photos whenever they want, right? They can also go in there and just make any changes. The AI is not 100% accurate. It's probably 80 to 85% accurate now. So they can make some changes, say, oh, that's not actually moving, or I took that photo twice, right? They can delete the photo. And then into smart moving, or whatever your CRM is, we insert our lead score. Like, is this a green, yellow, red? We insert the link to the photos, all the contact information from address to address, move date, and then information around like, how much is this house worth? Like, what's the square footage, number of bedrooms, what's the distance between these houses? right? So we're inserting this information that we've learned. How many photos did they take? Were we able to verify their phone number as part of the process? We insert all that information in there so that, as it comes through, if you're on the phone with a $5,000 lead and it comes through and the estimate's $500 and the weight is, 400 pounds, stay on the phone, the call you're already on, right? And vice versa. If you've got one salesperson, which a lot of movers only have one salesperson, and you're on the call with somebody who like it's shaping up to be a $500 move, but a lead comes in that's a $5,000 move, end the call, right? Get it closed, follow up with them later, go after the more high priority move.
Love it. Love it. What other use cases can this technology have for a moving company? I'm thinking of some in my head besides, that initial quote form and lead gathering process. But like, can crews use this for documenting, inventories to make sure they match the quote, make sure the customer didn't go buy a bunch of furniture before the move, or they ended up, you always hear customers saying that they're going to sell something, get rid of something, and then you show up on moving day and it's all there and that won't fit in the truck, at least for the price that you originally quoted. Is there a use case there from an operational standpoint, do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of underestimation on the side of the residents, sometimes naively, sometimes with ill intent. So obviously the photos kind of eliminates a lot of that conversation, and the customer sat because it's really well documented. And it's not like someone wrote, 2 chairs on a piece of paper. It's the photo of those chairs, and they didn't swap out a lazy boy for, like a folding chair or something like that. So yeah, there's a couple things. One, if you get a call in, you can just text the link in real time to the person you're talking to. Have them put you on speaker. They take the photos as you're in the conversation. Boom, survey's done in real time, like while you're talking, right? And then also, right, if the crew gets on site. So wait, this is one of the funniest stories I've heard so far. There's a mover who he has his guys send him texts of photos of anything that looks like it's already broken before they move it. So his phone is just blowing up all day with hundreds of photos of people's furniture, right? That's like not even attributed to a particular move, right? Just to kind of CYA. And so like this is something that is much more organized than that. If when the crew gets on site, they can take photos of all the stuff. As long as they put in the customer's phone number, that will show up as an additional survey, like under that customer's account. So you can do before and after, protect yourself from some of the like, hey, you broke my TV type stuff, and also like make sure the inventory matches what was already quoted.
No, that's awesome. I'm really excited about the new open API that Smart Moving just rolled out that they're currently in the process of beta testing, because I think if something like Smart Moving or your CRM could talk to this technology, whether it was from the sales side to where salespeople can save 18 million hours a year from uploading, like manually tallying up inventories. And, it's already better than it was with the old cube sheets that people used to do by hand. But if they could just take pictures and the inventory automatically populates, that would be huge. But they also have the crew apps where crews can take photos out on the job site and upload it to that customer's profile. And if the technology could automatically, verify the inventory or verify, timestamp, whatever the, fact that this China cabinet was scratched, and they could just do it through your company's website and just make it super, super easy. I think that would be a huge value add and save a lot of time and a lot of claims too, because how often do movers move something that was already damaged? They forgot to point it out, or they forgot to take a picture, forgot to text their operations manager the picture of the item, and then it gets to the other end and it's under a different lighting or whatever, and customer sees the scratch and then they try to blame it on the mover. Happens all the time. And, this kind of technology, I think, would streamline that and create a path of least resistance to documenting a lot of those things. So I'm really hopeful that we can figure out a way with CRMs to be able to work hand in hand with a software like this, because I think it could be extremely valuable across the board.
You could see where, in a couple of years, the whole safe driver program, sometimes the different auto insurance companies give you, or you get a lower interest rate if you have this thing that like measures how hard you brake and stuff like that. You could totally see an insurance company, having a lower insurance rate for a mover who is using this type of thing on a consistent basis to defeat those types of claims from, on the outside. right? So there's a lot of really cool things that are going to happen in the future. Obviously, like spending 18 million hours a year writing down furniture, that's not going to be sustainable for the next 5 years. That's going to start to go away. And it's going to take a lot of different forms. It's going to be pretty cool.
I love it. And if you want to go see for yourself what ComeHome AI looks like, go to twocollegebrothers.com. We've been using it now for several months, and the data looks very promising that this could be the future of inventorying and some of those other use cases like damage documentation, etc. Really fascinated by this topic and all the capabilities that AI are going to be able to do to streamline our operations even more. I think back, like, I used to think in like 2015, how did people own businesses or moving companies without computers? And then we get CRMs, and I'm like, how did we ever run our moving company without a CRM? And now that AI is becoming such a powerful force, and it's just getting smarter and smarter every day, and more capabilities are unfolding. I mean, in a year, 2 years, 5 years from now, it's going to be a completely different landscape. And the companies that just avoid it and they bury their head in the sand probably aren't going to last too long, because the speed at which we can now do business, it's just amplifying. And what you're doing here is super exciting. Can't wait to see further and further iterations of this. And I know it's already helping our company stand out amongst the competition, and also streamline our inventory gathering efforts and capture more leads that convert at a higher rate. So, love what you're doing. Riley, how can people get a hold of you and learn more about this really exciting tech development?
Sure. So support at comehome.ai is a great way to get a hold of us, or you can go to the website and there's a link to just book a meeting directly on my calendar. So either of those would work just fine. Yeah, and I was going to just pitch in there on how quickly AI is changing things. So Lars, early last year tried out GitHub Copilot, which is a application that helps write code. And he was like, not so good. Tried it again last September and said, wow, this helps. Literally is writing code 3 times as fast, right? So if you think about all of the companies out there that like all they do is write software, right? The Googles, the Facebooks, they're writing code 3 times as fast now, right?
Wow.
And that happened in 6 months. And what's going to happen in the next 6 months? So hang on, right? It's going to get wild.
I know, it really is. And I think I heard something recently from one of the founder, was it Sam Altman? Is he the founder of ChatGPT?
Yeah.
I think he said the next version of ChatGPT is going to make the current version look archaic with the capabilities that it can do. So, wow, wild times we're living in. I think, people are afraid of AI, and it's no reason not to adopt it, because if you don't adopt it, your competition will, and you don't want to get left behind. So it's important to educate yourselves on this stuff, and figure out how to make your job easier, your team's job easier. It's going to replace a lot of jobs, but it's going to create a lot of jobs, because things are going to move so much faster that more is going to be possible. And I'm really excited to see where it goes. So if you can't beat it, embrace it and use it to your advantage. Riley, this has been awesome. Thanks for coming on to the podcast, and looking forward to continuing our partnership together and seeing where this all goes.
Thanks, Wade. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.